Hey guys, a little trade we did in JNUG today, or I did in JNUG today. Just looking at GDXJ, it looked like we've had a couple rejections on the daily 1 year chart. And if you look at from a longer term time frame, let's look at 10 years. It's the same thing with gold. We scroll back, let's add the steady set for daily. And if we scroll back on the time frame from several years ago, you can see that in this little time frame here, we had an uptrend. And if we kind of draw a little pattern along here, the uptrend kind of broke in this time frame here. We would say the high candle before the pullback was somewhere around this 48.50-ish area, kind of a double top here where it retested the lower channel and broke down and then continued to drop precipitously from there over a period of time. That 48 area has kind of become resistance. In this time frame, we did put a little bit of a head fake through it, but it's really been the closing resistance. So although gold in the miners wants to go higher, it's probably a little bit too much too soon. So what we've been doing is playing this little rejection area on the horizontal support, thinking, okay, we get it. It's a little too much too fast, but I think it's going to probably push through there in time, but we don't want to play that on a shorter term and get caught up in a bad trade. So looking at the lower area here as support, we kind of go over to JNUG, which is our long leverage ETF, and we look at the intraday chart, and we notice obviously that gold was dropping pretty quick from the get-go. And then we load our intraday study, and you can see what we start to do is draw a little bit of channel lines. We wait for some shape to change, right? You get bounce there, and then it doesn't pull all the way back to our lower VWAP trend line right here. It bounces and then goes up through the VWAP, right? The purple is the VWAP, pulls back and then bounces. But once it started to move up and then bounce and then take shape here, we can start to draw trend lines, right? Where we kind of break and then go back and back test it, but we never get back down to the trend line. So now we're watching gold. I haven't taken a trade yet, and it bounces, and now I have some shapes that I can draw. My first shape is off the yellow lower channel line pivot, and that runs right along this little bottom end pivot, and it creates a little channel across here. Then we also have some transitional changes along this area here where nice continuation move, a retest right along this line, pull back up, a retest, and then a fail. So this line's important as well as the last area before we pulled back. So we're kind of creating little channels intraday. This last candle was the last one before this little uptrend broke and then went all the way down. So this is important too. So we're looking for candles of significance. Obviously, these work out pretty well. But the trade was waiting and being patient. And once I got back to this little channel line here, we took the trade in. And the stop was tight. We just put it under this lower candle. In fact, you could have put a really tight stop there. There's a little bit of a wide spread on JNUG, so maybe give yourself a little wiggle room. But then we played this move to the upside nicely. I mean, this is 2 or 3 point move. You get a couple hundred shares, you're in pretty good. And then I just kept moving the stop up. Once we crossed the VWAP, it back tested, it moved higher. I figured this channel would coincide with the yellow overbought on the RSI. We'd want to sell this channel. So we sold this channel here and probably look for another pullback here, probably below the VWAP to kind of get people shaken out a little bit. And that was a nice trade there for that. Let's see what else we got cracking today. mRNA has been super weak lately, but it's been a hard stock to just short and then hold the short. It's very whippy, probably a lot of shorts in it. So you see a lot of spikes when they get squeezed to the upside, then it fades back down again, squeeze, and then fade. These are not normal moves for stocks that are on a strong uptrend, but obviously this thing was at $94 at one point intraday, not too long ago. So to go shorting it down in the 60s is a little bit difficult, and I don't like the company long for a buy and hold. Interesting company too today that I looked at, and I'm looking for stuff that's kind of outside the norm, is SBS. I like this chart and I bought some, And looking at the daily the 1 year daily on this, let's see here. Let's load the 1 year daily. It's an interesting chart forming here for sure. And let's see if we can zoom in here. And we kind of back tested the 20-day moving average. A couple closes above it. Let's zoom in a little bit and see if we can get a better look at that. A couple closes above the 20-day moving average, and no follow through, right? Even if we draw a trend line on there, we can kind of see the wedge pop on the bull flag. So close above it and then just fail. So no follow through. So these candles really aren't significant. Another close above it and then drop back down. But you have almost like a triple touch on the bottom. And then you kind of, if we draw a trend line through the 20, you see this wedge that kind of breaks. And now we have some pulling away from the 20 finally. We got a few hundred shares of that just for a buy and hold. We do 7 or 8 of these and kind of have a little mini portfolio going. I want to be in mostly cash in this market, but I'm looking for stuff like, utility stocks, real estate stuff that's been beaten down. And I hedge it with some intraday shorting, but I want to buy stuff that's kind of safe. Obviously, if you look at this on a 3-year chart, this had a nice uptrend. If it didn't have an uptrend prior to this pullback in the market, I'm really not interested in it. So I like to see stuff that looked strong to begin with, and then obviously the COVID-19 situation caused it to crack back down. But interesting move today, and it's I had a little oil short in there, and then it's breaking out of there. So on pretty good volume. So just stuff to keep an eye on in a market that's kind of more of a momentum market than anything else right here.